Now, Mr. President, as I mentioned, these will be the final actions that will be taken by the Congress. And in thinking about this particular measure and listening to those that hold a different position, I was thinking back over the period of the last 2 years and what has been the record with regards to working families by the leadership in the House and Senate of the United States. And I step back to the early part of this Congress, to the period in February, March of a year ago, and saw one of the first actions that was being put forward in the Congress, Senate of the United States, was the repeal of what we call the Davis-Bacon Act. That is to use a prevailing wage, whatever the average wage is in a particular labor market area, on the building of federal construction, so that the fact that the United States is contracting in a particular group, in a particular geographic area, will not either raise or depress the wages of working families. That applies to the construction industry, which is the second most dangerous industry in this. Mining is number one, construction number two. The average wage across the country, and in my state of Massachusetts, under the Davis-Bacon Act for construction workers, is $27,500. $27,500. And I was asking myself, what do our Republican friends have against workers who are working in one of the most dangerous occupations from making $27,500, individuals who have acquired skills, have gone through various training programs? What is it about those workers, given the range of different challenges that we are facing in this country, what is it about those workers in the construction industry that we're going to say we're going to undermine, and we're going to make sure they're not even going to average $27,500? But nonetheless, that effort was made, not just once, not just twice, not just 3 times, but on a whole series of pieces of legislation. They added the repeal of Davis-Bacon to the national highway system, and we blocked that. Then they tried to include the repeal of Davis-Bacon in their budget bill in '95, but once again we forced them to remove it. Time in and time out, not just to raise this issue, let the Senate judge on it, and then say, all right, so the decision has been made that we're not going to repeal it, but relentless to try to undermine working families that are going to make $27,500 in an industry, in the construction industry. So we say, well, all right, that is just the beginning. That's just the first of the program. But it was just about that time that we had the Republican budget. And the Republican budget was going to provide, over a 10-year period, additional $4 trillion for what would be considered corporations and individual tax benefits. There was only going to be one area where there were going to be tax increases. $4 trillion for companies and the wealthiest individuals, but only $20 billion of raising the taxes. Well, one could say, look, out of all of those tax loopholes, certainly we ought to be able to find the $20 billion in there. You can think of several of them. They come to mind now about the issues of deferral or title transfer, other items, which are just gimmicks which work to an unfair advantage for those that take advantage of them, that we might be able to recover the $20 billion. The answer to that is no. The Republican leadership wanted to increase the taxes on working families, again, by reducing the Earned Income Tax Credit. What is the earned? Who benefits from the Earned Income Tax Credit? Workers that make below $28,000, that have children. They're the principal beneficiaries. And as the income goes down, they're able to participate in the program, and it's actually phased out about $30,000. Here we have $20 billion tax increase on working families that are below the $30,000, cutting back on the construction workers, cutting back on workers that have children and the Earned Income Tax Credit. And, Mr. President, it didn't take long right after that when we had introduced, I, Senator Daschle, a number of our colleagues, my colleague Senator Kerry, Senator Wellstone, Senator Levin, many others, introduced increase in the minimum wage for working families, for individuals that work 40 hours a week, 52 weeks of the year. It has been from the late 1930s, Republicans and Democrats had come together to make sure that those people are going to work, are going to be able to acquire sufficient income so that they did not live in poverty. We are going to honor work in America. In 1980, a family of 3 was at the poverty line. But over the last 5 years, we have lost the purchasing power to a 40-year low. And all we wanted to do is to try and bring that purchasing power just about close to what the poverty line would be for a family of 3. And all we found out was the strong opposition of Republican leadership. This is what the House Majority Dick Armey said in January 24th of '95. I will resist any increase in the minimum wage with every fiber in my being. This is the Republican whip, Tom DeLay, said. Working families trying to get by on $4.25 an hour don't really exist. Well, Mr. DeLay, why don't you talk to approximately the 4 million families that got the 50 cents edition yesterday? The increase in the minimum wage is a woman's issue. 66% of those that get the increase in the minimum wage are women. It's a children's issue because of the millions of children that are living in families that are dependent upon that increase in the minimum wage. It's an adult issue. 77% of those that receive it are adults. And Mr. President, but not according to our Republican leadership, here is our Republican conference chairman, John Boehner. I'll commit suicide before I vote on a clean minimum wage bill. And so we went on, refusing to permit at least our committee to have a hearing on the increase in the minimum wage so we could review whether it's inflationary or whether it's going to be a job loss. Important studies have indicated that in a number of instances, an expansion of the job market because more people come out that have gotten out of the job market because they want to participate, because they think it's well worth their efforts to work at that figure. But we wanted to have a hearing to put some of those issues to rest. But we were denied even the opportunity to have the hearing. And then we came to the floor, and time in and time out, the Republican leader, Senator Dole, resisted every single effort that we made in order to get a minimum wage increase scheduled here on the floor of the United States Senate. Went to extraordinary heights to make sure we weren't going to get it. Well, we finally did get it. And after we got it, what did the Republican leadership do? Tried to reduce it, number one, and delay its implementation, number two. Supposed to go into effect in July of this last year, it went in October. And there were talks about trying to do it in mid-January or February. And you know, the interesting reason why that time was so that the large commercial stores could have the lower wages during the Christmas period. That was the reason. Thinking about working families, thinking about those people that are out there trying to make a living, that was the position with regards to working families. Now, that is why, Mr. President, when we're coming at the last action of this legislation, many of us are not surprised at the virtual uniform support for this provision on the other side and virtual Republicans' unanimity of support in the House of Representatives. We've seen what that record has been and how valued they have placed on the interests and the grievances of working families. Working families. Another area, of course, that they have great interest. But working families is the state of the. I'd like to continue.
Well, I think the senator's time has expired some time ago.
I asked for a consent to be able to proceed, and I was granted consent to be able to proceed.
When was
Mr.
that?
President, when I started.
I don't remember the senator.
Well, I asked a consent to be able to
very indulgent. The senator's been speaking now for 40 minutes. It was
well, I don't
equally
believe
divided.
it's been that.
I have not spoken on this issue now for 2 hours.
Well, Senator, I was here as the senator was at 2 o'clock, and we know and at least in the earlier time, you indicated that you were prepared to see that I was going to be able to, given the time, and
well, that's true, but
I asked consent.
Invited, Mr. President. Isn't the senator from Alaska entitled to some of this time, half of this time?
Well, the senator is. I asked for the regular order, Mr. President. I was asked to be able to proceed.
That. The senator from Massachusetts is actually 10 minutes over his time, and I'm not aware of a consent before I took the chair.
Well, Mr. President, as we found out earlier in the afternoon, I mean, the senator from Alaska has pointed out, my good friend and colleague, Senator Hollings spoke on using other time yesterday, and using allegedly our time today under the interpretation that was made on this. I had understood that I was going to be able to have the chance to speak, and I will ask for 10 more minutes to be able to conclude my remarks.
President, I don't have any objection that the senator wants additional time, but I'd like some time now. I mean, I thought this was equally divided. The senator's spoken for now almost an hour this afternoon. I'd ask the chair. It's been a very interesting Democratic campaign speech, Mr. President, but I haven't heard much about the bill before us for the last 40 minutes. So I don't have any problem giving the senator extra time to speak on the bill, but why should I listen to this claptrap that's going on over there that's not true? Well, you know, we can speak all night and run the campaign for me. Well, I don't know anyone's wants to listen to the campaign here, but I've been hearing nothing about a bunch of stuff about taxes and attacks on members of the House. I regret that regular order, Mr. President.
If I could interject here, if they would address the other member through the chair. The senator from Massachusetts had made a request to be granted 10 more minutes. Do I hear an objection?
I object unless it's after this senator gets to use some of his time.
I withdraw the request, Mr. President. And
I will consent.
I'd asked for earlier. I'd asked earlier to be able to proceed without the interruption on that thing. I was granted recognition for that, and I'd ask the chair is going to respect that or is not going to respect it. I'll be glad to abide by whatever the chair says. I intend to sometime be able to make this talk, whether it pleases the senator from Alaska or not. I intend to make it. I know that he might not want to hear it, but I'll be glad to do it at one time or the other.